Do you want more? More time, more balance, more love, more sex, more money, more real, and less bullshit? This is the Women Wanting More podcast with Dr. Karen Osborne. Real life, real stories, plus real tips to get you more of what you want.
So I was just dropping off my oldest son, Tyson, at his summer camp today. He's having a blast with it. And the song, one of the songs by Sly and the Family Stone popped into my mind. If you don't know who they are, YouTube, I guess iTunes it, Spotify it, Sly and the Family Stone. Thank you for letting me be myself. And I want to talk to you about this, sister, because I don't think the conversation about being yourself can be had too much at all. At all. In a world where we're trying to kind of like fit in, where we think that we have to show up a certain way, where we're programmed to believe that we have to show up a certain way as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, as a businesswoman, it's like it is more important than ever to be yourself. But here's the question that comes up next from this. And so many of you, so if this is you, sister, just know that you are not alone. Because so many of you share this with me, is you often say to me, well, I don't know who I'm anymore. Like, how do I be myself if I don't know who me is? Who am I? And I think that the answer is not as complicated as you are making it out to be. See, this podcast episode could go a couple different ways. I could say, hey, like, journal some stuff, and yeah, I'm going to give you a more tip at the end. But like, here's the steps, here's the strategies, here's the tips, here's the kind of the quick and the dirty. And, you know, I'm rereading one of Brene Brown's books, which is called The Gifts of Imperfection. I've probably read it prior about 3 times, but not for a while. And I was reminded about it recently again, and I was like, no, I'm going to go back and reread that book. So side note, if you've not read The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown, you need to go read that right now. Because there's one thing that she said in there as well, too, about not being the... she was asked and she shares a story, she was asked in one of the times that she went to speak that, like, kind of just give us like steps kind of thing. And then she tried to, and she wasn't being who she was. And it was really awkward and weird and strange, and she just bombed. And she kind of held that shame about it for a long period of time until she shared it with her husband, Steve, when she was going to give a talk, which was a very big deal, where she was going to speak. And she still had the story of that, oh my God, I'm going to bomb like I did before, even though that was like 5 years ago. But one thing that she realized in that is, like, she's not a 5 steps to happiness. Like, that's not who she is. She's a researcher on shame and vulnerability and connection. And she knows who she is and who she's not. And when she tried to be who she wasn't, that there was such a disconnect, which is why she bombed, you know. And here's the bigger piece of this, is because I know, right, I've had times where, like, when I was in practice as a chiropractor, I thought I had to show up a certain way as a doctor. I have to dress a certain way, I need to speak a certain way, I can't ever talk about anything personal about me because it's all about the patient. And even though it wasn't like I was like sterile, like, call me Dr. Osborne, you know, kind of robotic, no feeling, like, not that at all. If you've ever been a chiropractor, at least a really good one, you know that chiropractors, we be touchy and feely. We operate a lot differently than a lot of the healthcare professionals, certainly the medical profession. But yet I still felt very, you know, the word that comes to me right away is trapped in being someone who I thought I was supposed to be, that was expected of me. And when I found that, even though that wasn't like, it wasn't so far off the deep end. So this is why some of you might be listening to this and you're like, the steps is not really for me. I'm not like that way. I am me, right? But I'm telling you, there's little slips, little slides that start to happen, that we start to become a little bit less like ourselves. And it's not so obvious, right? It's not like you lead this double life where it's Jekyll and Hyde, where one day you're like swinging, I don't know, like crazy wild woman, party woman, and then you're like church lady and the next day. Like, no, it doesn't have to be that extreme, that much of a dichotomy, but there's a split in being who you are, and it can be small. But yet, that small starts to create this erosion inside of your soul, where you know that it's not being you. You know it. And it feels weird and it's awkward, it takes a lot of energy. For me, and I've shared this story a number of times on the podcast, if I'm ever speaking and it's not really who I am, if I ever go to the mode of like trying to like teach, like let me show you why I'm the expert, then it literally feels in my throat like I'm pushing my voice. Right? Like ever had it? It's kind of like when you like, if you've ever lost your voice, which we've all had that happen, right? And you're like working so hard to be heard because you've got this little squeaky voice, or it's like it comes out little spurts, like as if you're a teenage boy going through puberty, and your voice is like breaking, right? It's like cracking, like something goes really high, and then like it's like that, like you're trying to really push to get your voice out to be heard, because something's happened, you've lost your voice, your body's healing. So when I go to that place of like, let me put on my expert hat, it would feel like that for me. And so that's now become a tell for me. I know when I'm now outside of the lane, I'm driving outside the lines of who Karen is, physically I can feel my body. I even like, now I'm, viscerally I'm very physical, like I feel stuff in my body, but you know what? I think you are too, sister. I don't think I'm the only one at all. Well, I know I'm not the only one, but I think that for so many of us, we will feel it in our body, but we've done things to our body or ignored it for so long. It's like your body's like, over here, I'm drowning. You're like, do, like you don't even hear it, right? You don't sense and experience it. So I'm going to have you just clue into that of like, when you found yourself in times where you're like, oh, that wasn't really me. Or like you're in a group of people and they're telling some joke, it's racist or sexist or I don't know, like just wrong, homophobic, like something where you're like, oh, I wouldn't really have laughed about that or tolerated it and not said anything, but I just kind of went along, right? Or people were gossiping and then I just kind of like jumped in and I went around, I gossiped with them, but that's not really me to do that. Notice how that feels in your body. Notice how that is. If it's kind of like me, right, you feel it in your throat. If it's, what's so interesting too, when I think back of how I felt as a kid growing up, I felt like nobody heard me, that my voice didn't matter. I was told to shut it down because girls don't do that, Karen. You're being bossy. My grandmother, love her, bless her. She's no longer alive. She's been actually passed away a long, long time ago, but she used to call me Little Lucy from Peanuts, who was considered the bossy one, right? That whole craziness of if we're females and we stand up for ourselves, we're bossy. However, if men do it, they're great leaders, right? You're like, what the fuck? So I remember feeling as a child like my voice didn't really matter. And then when I tried to be heard, I kind of swung to the other, like this pendulum swung to the other side. And then I was just like, I'm going to just like talk on top of people. I'm going to take my opinion. I'm going to shove it down your fucking throat because my voice is going to be heard. God damn it, whether you want it or not. And I knew how that felt in my body too. It felt like a push. It felt like a push. Like in my stomach, my breathing, my stomach feels like gross if I'm doing stuff that's not who I am. My breathing, as I take a deep breath, my breathing feels shallow. It doesn't feel like me. And then, let's talk about the flip side, right? Oh, my Lord. When I'm being me, that's a deep breath. It's a calm. It's a peacefulness. It's a knowing. It's a certainty. So how do I get from there to here? Listening. Years. This is the part of the podcast where you're like, okay, you were there, Karen, now you're here, and like I'm there, or I'm kind of wanting to move to this place of like knowing and certainty and understanding who I am, and like how do I get there? And honestly, you have to be, number one, be open to the experience. And you know what, sister, it is a lifelong process. So sorry not sorry, hashtag sorry not sorry, but like this doesn't happen in like tips and tricks. This doesn't happen in, do this thing or journal this, or, it's going to happen over time. But I know it does open you up. The experience of learning, the experience of, and by that could be like reading, listening to podcasts like you're listening to this one right now. It could be going to hear people speak. It's, when I have clients that have been coached by me, it's like just being really engrossed in that process. And you know what? Honestly, it comes back to more than anything, sister. It's telling the fucking truth. It is telling the truth. And it is very normal to shy away from that, because that can be scary, because the truth can be different than how you're showing up right now. And I'm going to have you consider it most likely is. And people know you as that. Or people knew me as Dr. Karen. Or like, what do you mean you're leaving chiropractic? Like, what? Oh, must be nice to do that. Yeah, I got some interesting feedback. Let's just maybe leave it at that. Some criticism, some like, what would you do that for? And what do you mean you guys are just closing your office? Like everything you've been building, you're just walking away from? Yes. Because who we were as Dr. Ed, Dr. Karen, now my husband at that point had been out of the practice for about 2.5 years because he was no longer able to practice. He was working with some patients. We brought in laser therapy in the office, and that was kind of happening for consultations, and we had a tech that was doing the work with patients. But even that, she was just like, this is no longer who I am. And if we continued down that path, I really feel like I would have lost myself completely. I don't know. Maybe I would have found my way back, right? But it was time to move, and it was scary as shit. Like literally 2 years ago, that's when we're going through all the process. So let me see. Right now, as I record this episode, it's towards the first week or so of July. June 30th was the last day we were actually in our physical office. Got everything out. May 30th, we closed the doors. And at this time, 2 years ago, we were like, because we had 3 vehicles. We're selling a vehicle, and we're selling a bunch of our stuff, and we're selling furniture. We're moving into a rental here in Victoria, and we moved the end of July, drove the 2 days, 2 dogs, 2 kids, as much stuff as we can, just like clothes and some of the kids' toys and that kind of thing in our vehicle. Moving truck came, moved the rest of it. Like, it was a big fucking transition to do all of that. But we had to be who we were. We had to honor who we are inside. And it wasn't happening by staying in practice. And that happened over time. And yes, it happened by learning. And yes, it happened by journaling. And yes, by meditation. And yes, by taking care of me. And yes, by just simply starting to open up and tell the truth. And, the sisterhood is one thing that I have created. I've created a lot of things over the years. Almost 3 years now since I've launched the podcast and been coaching. And there's a lot of things I don't know if I will be bringing back. Live events, group coaching, one-on-one. Like, I don't know at this point. Because I'm going through almost like an awakening. I call it the breakdown, awakening, shift, oh, holy fuck moment of who am I now? So understand, it is a constant unfolding of who you are. And because the purpose of life is growth and expansion, then you will be different. Who I am 2 years ago is different than who I am now. Who I was 4 years ago is unrecognizable from who I am today. But you need to be you. It is vital to the world that you be you. But for yourself first, sister. For yourself first. So here's your more tip for today. What is one actual, here's the quick and dirty, okay? Here's something you can do. What is one action step that you can take today that will move you more towards being you? What is that one thing? And I want you to take that one action step within the next 24 hours. Because universe and God rewards speed. If we delay on stuff, it ain't going to happen. We act immediately in the moment that we feel that. Which exactly is, by the way, how I do this podcast. I think of something and I go, oh, let me podcast about that. I have no idea where it's going, but I know it's going to land somewhere where it needs to be. So finishing up Sister. Now, I mentioned the sisterhood. So to be able to join us there, so you can do this work around other women who are like you. Because I know it's virtually impossible to do this work by yourself. Just know that. I mean, I've been dipped in the personal development arena since my mid-20s, early mid-20s. So, and I'm almost 49. I am 49. I was going to say almost 50. That's next year. Hold up. Not quite 50 yet. But so, you're looking at 25 years of doing this work. And so it takes time. But I'm telling you that when you're around people that are like you, it's like throwing like steroids into the mix, right? It's like putting gas onto the fire. Like it's going to help you get there faster. So that's why I created the Sisterhood a little bit over a year ago. So to join us there, I want you to go to drkarenosborne.com/sisterhood. And you get to sign up for the first 7 days for free. My gift to you. Number 2, I want to make sure that you are getting the newsletter, Women Wanting More newsletter, so you can be part of this tribe. I'm writing a book right now, so you will get the sneak peek of everything that's happening in the book coming out. I don't know when it comes out. I'm putting no deadline on it, and I'm simply writing just about every single day. So that's over at drkarenosborne.com/action guide, because I'm going to send you some cool things to do then too. Some video trainings. And number 3, make sure to subscribe to the podcast here, sister. I want to make sure that you don't miss an episode. And I would love and appreciate if you leave a review on iTunes. 5-star review, subliminal. Subliminal, not subliminal. So that we can help connect with more women that need to hear this message too. So I'll talk to you in the next episode, sister. A life of more is just one step away from you doing the fucking work every single day and being you. It's big. It's big, sister.
To get the show notes of each Women Wanting More episode, including the How to Get More tip, subscribe to the newsletter at drkarenosborne.com/newsletter.